She was a mother of 4. A short knock on a neighbor's door, nothing more, and a single bullet ended her life. Today we follow every fact, every 911 call, and every piece of evidence in the case of Ajike Owens, a black mother who walked up to her neighbor's locked door and never came back. By the end of this video you will know what happened that night, why this case became a national story about race and stand your ground, and what the jury finally decided. Stay with me, because the truth is in the calls, the bodycam, and the witnesses.
Welcome to Black HerTruth.
Ajike Owens was a 35-year-old mother of 4 who lived in Ocala, Florida. She loved her kids and cared for her family. Neighbors later said Owens and her children had lived in the area for years. For months there had been tension between Owens' family and her next-door neighbor, 58-year-old Susan Lorincz. Lorincz repeatedly complained about the Owens children playing near her home and, according to police reports, at times shouted at the kids and made threats. Investigators later reported that Lorincz had a history of angry calls to police about the children. On the evening of June 2, 2023, an argument over the children escalated. According to the Marion County Sheriff's Office, Lorincz called 911 first to report trespassing. Deputies were dispatched and were on the way. A short time later, Ajike Owens walked to Lorincz's front door to confront her about what had happened to the kids. Owens knocked and called for Lorincz while her 10-year-old son stood beside her. Within minutes, while the door was closed and locked, Lorincz fired one shot through the door. The bullet hit Owens in the chest. She collapsed outside the house and emergency crews rushed her to a hospital, where she died. Neighbors heard a single shot and then screams. One neighbor ran outside and tried to help. By the time deputies arrived, Owens was unresponsive. The scene stunned the small community and quickly drew local and national attention because Owens had been shot through a locked door while standing outside and because her child was with her. Lorincz told investigators she had felt threatened and later claimed self-defense. But detectives said the physical evidence and witness statements did not support the assertion that Owens had tried to force entry or presented an imminent danger when she was shot. The sheriff publicly said that firing through a locked door was not justified in this situation. The case moved quickly into public view. The family's lawyers and civil rights advocates, including high-profile attorneys, called for a full investigation and for charges. The shooting reignited debate about Florida's Stand Your Ground law and how claims of self-defense are reviewed when race and neighborhood conflicts are involved. Protesters gathered at the county courthouse and the family demanded justice for AJ. In the days after the shooting, law enforcement completed interviews and reviewed 911 records, surveillance and physical evidence. On June 6, 2023, deputies arrested Susan Lorincz and charged her with manslaughter with a firearm, culpable negligence, battery, and counts of assault. She pleaded not guilty, and the legal process moved from arrest to indictment to trial. Before the fatal shooting that night, police had already responded to multiple calls at Susan Lorincz's home involving her neighbor, Ajike Owens, and her children. Deputies later released bodycam footage showing several of these earlier interactions. On at least 6 occasions dating back to early 2021, Lorincz had called 911 complaining about the neighborhood children, saying they were trespassing or making noise, complaints deputies sometimes described as unfounded. In the hours leading up to the shooting on June 2, 2023, Lorincz made a 911 call to law enforcement. In that recording, she reported feeling threatened by the children outside, saying, "I feel like I'm threatened in my own home. I'm very scared." She asked police to respond. At that moment, deputies were dispatched to the scene on a trespassing complaint. While that call was happening, Owens and her 10-year-old son Israel walked over to Lorincz's apartment. According to the arrest affidavit and law enforcement accounts, Owens knocked several times on the closed, locked front door, calling out for Lorincz to come outside. Owens was unarmed and standing on the porch when a single gunshot was fired through the door from inside the home. The bullet struck her in the chest at close range. Her young son was beside her. Another 911 call was logged immediately after the shot was fired, this one reporting the gunfire. Responding deputies found Owens lying on the ground, unresponsive from the wound. She was rushed to a hospital but died later that night. The release of 911 audio and related bodycam footage later became a central part of the case. It showed Lorincz's consistent requests for police help in disputes involving the children, even for minor complaints. Dispatchers instructing her to stay inside and wait for deputies, not to use force. And crucially, the timing of her last 911 call, just minutes before the shooting, showing police were already en route when she chose to fire through the locked door. Law enforcement later stated that Owens had not forced entry into the residence and was not breaking in when she was shot. Investigators said she was simply trying to speak with Lorincz following the earlier argument involving her children. This fact, that the door was closed and locked and no entry attempt was made, became a critical piece of evidence in determining whether Lorincz's claim of self-defense was credible under Florida law. After the shooting of Ajike Owens, the Marion County Sheriff's Office immediately secured the scene and collected forensic evidence. Ballistics analysis showed the bullet had been fired from inside Susan Lorincz's home, passed cleanly through the locked front door, and struck Owens in the chest. The trajectory confirmed that Owens had been standing outside, at a distance of roughly 3 feet from the door, and posed no physical threat capable of causing imminent harm. Investigators also reviewed all dispatch logs, 911 calls, and bodycam footage from deputies responding to previous complaints. These records showed a pattern. Lorincz had frequently called police about minor disputes with the Owens children, often escalating fear in her own account of events. Experts testified that none of these previous incidents justified using lethal force against an unarmed adult who was simply knocking on the door. Neighbors were interviewed and provided critical eyewitness testimony. Several confirmed that Owens approached the door calmly, knocking and calling for Lorincz, and that she did not threaten or yell aggressively. One neighbor recounted hearing only a single gunshot, followed by the child screaming and running away. Others emphasized that Owens had a reputation as a peaceful, caring mother, and that Lorincz had repeatedly expressed fear over minor incidents involving the children. Forensic experts documented the door, bullet, and gun, confirming Lorincz fired a single shot through a locked door rather than engaging in a defensive struggle. These findings directly contradicted her claim that she acted in immediate fear for her life. Audio from her second 911 call, where she said, "I thought she was going to kill me," was also played in court, highlighting that she had already been told by the dispatcher to wait for deputies and remain inside. The combination of physical evidence, witness statements, and timeline reconstruction allowed prosecutors to argue convincingly that the shooting was not justified under Florida's self-defense law. They emphasized that Owens was outside a locked door, unarmed, and that police were already responding to Lorincz's prior call. In essence, the evidence painted a clear picture. The act of firing through a locked door at an unarmed neighbor could not reasonably be seen as self-defense. By compiling ballistic data, 911 transcripts, bodycam footage, and neighbor testimonies, investigators created a complete timeline of events, from the initial complaints to the fatal shot, that left little room for Lorincz's narrative. This careful documentation and forensic work became the backbone of the prosecution's case and set the stage for criminal charges, including manslaughter and culpable negligence. The trial of Susan Lorincz began several months after the shooting of Ajike Owens. Prosecutors presented a clear, evidence-based case showing that Owens had been unarmed and standing outside a locked door when she was shot, and that Lorincz's claim of self-defense was not supported by the facts. They emphasized the timeline reconstructed from 911 calls, dispatch logs, and neighbor testimony, showing that deputies were already on their way when the fatal shot was fired. Witnesses played a pivotal role. Neighbors testified that Owens had approached the door calmly, knocking and calling for Lorincz without threatening behavior. Some recounted that they heard only a single gunshot and then saw Owens collapse outside. One neighbor described the immediate aftermath, noting the child screaming and running for help. These testimonies reinforced that Owens posed no imminent threat. Forensic experts took the stand to explain the ballistic evidence and the bullet trajectory, confirming that Lorincz fired through a locked door from inside her home. The prosecution argued that firing in this manner at an unarmed person standing outside could not reasonably be considered self-defense under Florida law. The defense claimed Lorincz feared for her life and acted in self-defense, citing her prior concerns and the first 911 call in which she expressed fear about the neighborhood children. They argued that her perception of danger justified the use of her firearm. However, the prosecution countered by highlighting that deputies had already been dispatched, Owens had not attempted to force entry, and that the shooting was not immediate or unavoidable. During closing arguments, the prosecution reminded the jury of the sequence: Owens knocking on a locked door, being unarmed, standing calmly, and a single bullet fired through that door. They emphasized the emotional impact on the child present and the broader implications for the stand your ground law. The defense reiterated Lorincz's fear, but evidence and witness testimony consistently contradicted her version of events. The jury deliberated carefully, considering both the law and the clear evidence presented. Expert testimony, neighbor accounts, bodycam footage, and 911 recordings collectively showed that Lorincz's actions were unreasonable under the circumstances. The trial highlighted not only the facts of that night but also how Florida's self-defense laws are applied when an unarmed person is shot through a locked door. By the end of the trial, the case had clearly demonstrated a pattern. Owens was a mother trying to address a dispute about her children, and Lorincz's decision to fire through the door resulted in a tragic death that was entirely preventable. The courtroom became a place where facts, evidence, and witness accounts finally told the story of what happened that night in Ocala, Florida. After a carefully documented trial, the jury reached a verdict. Susan Lorincz was found guilty of manslaughter with a firearm and culpable negligence, reflecting the evidence that she had fired a single shot through a locked door at an unarmed Ajike Owens. The verdict emphasized that Lorincz's fear of imminent harm was not reasonable under Florida law, given that deputies were already on the way and Owens posed no threat. Lorincz was sentenced to serve 10 years in prison, with additional penalties for culpable negligence. The judge highlighted the tragic consequences of using lethal force when no immediate danger exists, noting that Owens' death could have been prevented. The community and Owens' family expressed both relief and sorrow. A public vigil was held, attended by neighbors, friends, and civil rights advocates, honoring Owens as a loving mother whose life was cut short. Family members spoke about her dedication to her children and urged others to learn from the tragedy, emphasizing the importance of non-violent conflict resolution. Legal experts and media commentators reflected on the case as a notable example of Florida's stand your ground law being challenged in court. The case demonstrated that the law does not automatically justify lethal force, particularly when the evidence shows the victim posed no imminent threat. It became a reference point in discussions about neighborhood safety, gun use, and accountability. For the family, justice brought some closure, but the loss of Ajike Owens remains profound. Her children, who witnessed the shooting, now live with the lasting impact of that night. Advocates continue to call for education on non-lethal conflict resolution and greater awareness about the responsibilities of gun ownership. The legacy of this case is clear. Laws like Stand Your Ground do not protect actions that are unreasonable or unnecessary. Owens' story reminds communities nationwide of the dangers of escalating disputes with lethal force and highlights the importance of evidence, witnesses, and law enforcement in bringing justice when tragedy strikes. Ajike Owens' life was taken in a moment that could have been prevented. Her story teaches a powerful lesson: violence is never the solution, and responsibility always matters. Share this story, reflect on the consequences of fear and action, and honor AJ's memory by spreading awareness in your community. Thank you for watching. If you found this story impactful and want to help keep these kinds of stories from being forgotten, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, stay with us.